Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the showdown between the Dark Elves led by Marathi and the Warriors of Chaos, who are going to be led by Archaon, the Sometimes Chosen. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So probably the first thing you guys are going to notice is the fact that I do indeed have the HYDRA as well as the KHARIBDYSS. And the Warriors of Chaos matchup is definitely one of the few matchups in which you could probably get away with this, simply because the Warriors of Chaos don't really have the best range options. They do have Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, which can do an okay job, but they definitely have to get pretty close with their 70 range. Then there is, of course, the Spear variant, which does have 90 range, but it's not going to be like facing off against the Empire, the Dwarves, or any of those true missile factions, which can really just provide withering fire on monsters like the HYDRA and the KHARIBDYSS. So you can get away with it here, and the HYDRA is very good against infantry. He has heavy armor piercing. So against the Warriors of Chaos, who like to bring a lot of Chosen and Chaos Warriors and somewhat elite expensive infantry, I feel like the HYDRA might have a bit of a niche. On top of that, the KHARIBDYSS is definitely a decent pick in this matchup, regardless of the circumstances, because he's able to fight Shaggoths. He can probably keep Kolek honest, as you guys did see in the testing video. Yes, the KHARIBDYSS will struggle a little bit against Kolek, but it still does a ton of damage. It poisons him, and if he's fighting Kolek, for example, and you were to swoop in with like Marathi and get a rear charge with her anti-large and also her Enchanting Beauty and her other, I think it's a total of 18 negative melee attack, you can really do some heavy damage and take Kolek down rather quickly. So I do like the KHARIBDYSS pick here. And of course, he does have that leadership bump, so the Abyssal Howl, which you actually do hear in the game, if I'm not mistaken. Other than that, I'm just going crazy, but it does do -8 leadership, which is pretty substantial. For our main infantry corps, we have pretty much just elite infantry. So the Blades of the Blood Queen, and these guys are the absolute punishers. 53 melee attack, 46 melee defense, and 44 weapon strength with really, really good AP and a bonus versus infantry of 14. On top of that, a couple of groups of Harganeth Executioners are going to be flanking the Blades of the Blood Queen. And for our leadership, we do have Marathi. So Marathi's lurking around here somewhere. And if I had to think about it, I think she might be the most competitive pick in the Chaos matchup. She has, anti-large and AP, so against Chaos Knights, against Kolek, she can stick and move, get her on the battlefield. On top of that, her melee attack debuff is so powerful. And I think it's the sword. And let's go ahead and actually pause for a second and see what the sword is called. She's like right in the Raven's Herald. So the Heartrender and the Dark Sword give -9 melee attack and melee defense. And on top of that, this ability here, the Enchanting Beauty, is going to give -9 melee attack as well. So yeah, you get a lot of good debuffs from her. She's really good against armor. Yeah, she's a little bit squishy compared to Malekith, who has more armor, but I still think her ability to move, and she has great spells from Shadows as well as Death and Darkness, I think, are the three that she has. So she definitely brings a lot to the table, but yeah, that's going to be our Lord. And we also do have the Raven's Herald, which are the ROR of the Repeater crossbows. And I don't really like them in most matchups, but if you are going to be using them, I think they're actually okay in the Chaos matchup. With 105 speed, they can outrun and outmaneuver Marauder Horsemen, who might be pressuring them. They have really good AP. They have 58 missile damage, so against like Chosen, Chaos Warriors, Forsaken. Probably don't want to be shooting Chaos Warriors with shields, but against everyone else, they do a lot of damage. And even if you just sit them on Kolek or some Chaos Knights if you have to, I feel like they have some pretty good utility. They're incredibly squishy though, so if you slip up for one moment, leave them sitting and they're going to be taking some, throwing axes or spears, they can go down incredibly quick. So definitely just be careful. But yeah, I think they're kind of have a cool niche situation here, and they definitely look really, really cool. So that's it for the whole army. We've got some spears in the back line and the Helibroni over here ready to Netflix and chill. Always a good time with those guys. And for my opponent, he has a pretty wide infantry army. So he has a couple of groups of Chaos Warriors in the front line, which he was probably expecting maybe Dark Shards as well as Spearmen in the front line, but they're definitely going to struggle a little bit against the Blades of the Blood Queen. A bunch of groups of Forsaken. So I think he has 3 or 4 of those. In the back, he does have 3 groups of Halberds, I think. So 1, 2, and it looks like there is a 3rd group right here. So this is definitely going to be his bread and butter here. He really needs the anti-large bonus on these Halberds to take down my Hydras. But aside from that, I don't think he has any like heavy monsters himself, but Archaon the Ever-Chosen with his, if he emblades the Flaming Sword of Ruin on some of his units and gets some fire damage on the regenerating Hydra, he could do a lot of damage. But on top of that, he's got some Chaos Warhounds. Looks like more Warhounds over here in the forest. Archaon, and let's see what he's got in his kit. So the Burning Skull, Flaming Sword of Ruin, as well as Fireball. So the Fireball is also quite good against the Hydra, and he does have the Slayer of Kings without the Crown of Domination. So that's pretty much it for the armies, guys. So let's get this battle underway. So right now I'm coming out of the forest here. The Blades of the Blood Queen are advancing, ready to cut up some of these Chaos Warriors. My entire army was pretty much concealed here, so I think my opponent had to reform ranks, but I do actually use the Doombolt from Marathi's wand. So she has the wand of KHARIBDYSS, I think is what it's called, but here comes the Doombolt from the sky coming down from the void, and it's definitely going to hit pretty hard if he doesn't move. And check that out. That's really good. Archaon is incredibly tanky with a decent HP pool, so getting that free damage out of the gates is solid. And guys, this is going to be a great example of how hard the Blades of the Blood Queen hit. So they collide with these Warriors of Chaos here, and you can see immediately that the Chaos Warriors, which aren't really suited for AP combat, are just going to get torn to shreds. So that's the initial charge. Just give it like 2 or 3 seconds, and look how fast they're just getting massacred. The Blades of the Blood Queen are taking a little bit of damage back because Warriors of Chaos definitely aren't pushovers. So at this point, the Hydra is going to come in as well, provide some heavy AP against these Chaos Warriors, and the KHARIBDYSS is going to be pushing over to help out against Forsaken, which actually get a nice little charge bonus on the Hargoneth Executioners, but let's listen for a second and see if we can hear any squealing. So definitely some scary sounds going on, but I could have sworn earlier when I was doing a game cast that I heard like a high-pitched squealing sound, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'm just going crazy. But some of the HYDRA are having to fight some Chaos Warriors in the flank, which is going to go badly, especially considering they do have the Flaming Sword of Ruin. But the KHARIBDYSS is nearby, and he's going to bring decent AP, and yeah, there it is. You guys hear that? That must be the KHARIBDYSS. I'm not sure. I don't know what else that could be. But anyways, the Raven's Herald, I do have them kind of catty-cornered here in the forest. They're getting some solid AP shots on these Chaos Warriors, who also get hit with the Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma. But the frontline engagement is going well. These Chaos Warriors pretty much got run over by the Blades of the Blood Queen, but a Burning Skull is going to go down my formation, and that did a surprising amount of damage. I usually recalled it not doing well against heavily armored units, but maybe if you overcast it, it does a bit more. So right here, you can see my Hydra's kind of sitting and doing some good work in the front line, but there are some halberds, so I decided to kind of pull up and away and go after Archaon. So now Archaon is going to get attacked by the Great Hydra. But it is risky, because if Archaon does cast Flaming Sword of Ruin, like I said, he's going to be able to put out a ton of damage against the Hydra. And also there's a substantial amount of throwing axes. I think he does have one group back here, and I'm not sure. It looks like the other group is going to be coming in as well. But Archaon kind of is in the wrong neighborhood, because again, the Hydra has good AP, and Marathi comes in. That puts his melee attack down to 60, which I guess is low by Archaon standards, still pretty powerful. But it debuffs him. Marathi, of course, has really good anti-large and armor piercing, and you can see that Archaon is just kind of getting trash canned a little bit by Marashi, and the Blades of the Blood Queen, who of course do provide the Guardian ability, making her substantially more tanky against their Archaon. But man, he was just getting punished so hard in this situation. And yeah, the Warriors that were kind of fighting with Archaon, he had some halberds, they kind of got terrified and just really taken out by these Hargoneth Executioners. So looking pretty good in the mainline engagement. And Archaon can't really get away here. I mean, he is probably going to break, but Marathi is going to definitely be chasing him down. So you can see Archaon breaks right there. The Hydra definitely doing its job. But over here, there weren't really any large targets for the KHARIBDYSS to fight, so it's just going to be monster mashing. And, Forsaken do have okay leadership, but, that is really going to add up when it gets a little bit closer and more atrocious. Yeah, look at that. They actually get terrified off right there, which is pretty good. And I do overcast a Doom and Darkness, trying to get a leadership bomb, and it looks like it did work on the Warriors of Chaos. And these Forsaken are also at -24 with the stacking Abyssal Scream and the overcasted Doom of Darkness, which is AoE. So we actually get a nice little leadership bomb there, which I think is going to be one of the cooler ways to use the KHARIBDYSS in a bunch of different matchups. I can't wait to try it against like Beastmen or Greenskins and just bring like 2 of them and overcast Doom of Darkness with like 2 casters. Just some really, absurd build. But the Hargoneth Executioners here are doing quite well, just fighting to the bitter end here in the swamps against some of these Warhounds, as well as the Chaos Warriors. But my opponent's army was definitely more suited at fighting against like a Spearman type build. Against Spearman, the shields would have been very effective in the long, atrocious engagement. They would have taken minimal damage from like Dark Shards and Shades and things like that. But against a double monster build, I think he only had a couple halberds, but really, halberds aren't going to be that effective because the monsters are high mass, they're mobile, they can just cycle charge, and of course the Hydra does regenerate here. So the brother and sister here are going to be fighting and finishing off the last of the Warriors of Chaos. And I do charge in with the Raven's Heralds, as they did run out of ammo, but they are really pitiful in melee, and I just discovered that right here. So if we look at their stats, 23, 24, 24, I suppose is a little bit worse than the Marauder Horsemen, but not by much. And they have a very low model count at only 18, so they take pretty much half of their HP and damage there. But at that point, my opponent's forces are pretty much broken off by the KHARIBDYSS and the Hydra, so that was actually pretty fun. I think it could have been pretty scary if we saw a more traditional Chaos build, like using like Kolek, as well as like a second Shaggoth, but we still had answers. The KHARIBDYSS plus HYDRA plus Barathi bring a lot of anti-large to the table. But I look forward to trying a build like this. I don't know, maybe getting like the chill Hydra, like the ROR Hydra, and cutting corners somewhere else. But it was an extremely narrow elite build. But just based on what he brought in the front line, I think it really cost him quite a bit, because 123, 137, 54 on one of the groups that did get outflanked and pinned down by Forsaken with Archaon. But ultimately, those Hargoneth Executioners just did so much damage in the front line. The Hydras were able to do a ton of damage to Archaon, actually, with the help of Marathi, who lowered his melee defense and melee attack. And it was pretty cool getting that Doom and Darkness route there at the end. But I was using it throughout the game and getting some decent kind of leadership bombs on those Forsaken. And, I guess I wouldn't call them low-tier troops on the far side, but they're not chosen. But I would like to try this build against like a truly competitive Chaos build. So I'll try my best to get that in the next few days. Maybe I'll grab some tournament folks and see if I can get some matches. But I do like the Ravens Herald as well. I think they're decent in the Chaos matchup. I mean, they're able to sit. I think they would have been better if my opponent had been like a more narrow Chaos build. Like if you just sit them on Kolek or sit them on some like Chosen with great weapons, I feel like that's where they're really going to shine. But something I've been experiencing in my testing with the Ravens Herald is that they do have low ammunition. So I find that they tend to run out a little bit before they're able to truly finish off a target for their cost, because they are a little bit pricey. But I think they're cool, and I do want to experiment with them and see what matchups they shine in. But basically, it's just probably going to be against like Beastmen and Chaos and matchups where your opponent doesn't have a ton of missile play themselves. And for my opponent's build, it was definitely a fun one with Archaon the Everchosen. And Archaon can be okay here. He can lay a world of hurt with that Slayer of Kings, but when he got surrounded by like heavy infantry plus a Hydra and Wrathy, it was a little bit tough for him to shine. But yeah, I think had I gone with like Spearmen and Dark Shards and a bit of a wider build and maybe some like Doomfire Warlocks, it would have been tough to crack this build. But just based on like the double monster and heavy infantry, I think I was able to really just grind through the Forsaken and Chaos Warriors. So anyways, very well played to my opponent, Sheepman. Look forward to running into again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing Wrathy, the KHARIBDYSS, as well as the War Hydra and Raven Heralds in action. That was quite a showcase right there. So have an excellent night, guys, and take care.